Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for organizing this hearing. This is now, as the chairman said, the third of these hearings that we've done. I've learned a lot in the previous couple. I think some of what we're learning about the potentials of AI is exhilarating. Some of it is horrifying. And I think what I hear the chairman saying, and what I certainly agree with, is we have a responsibility here now to do our part to make sure that this new technology, which holds a lot of promise but also peril, actually works for the American people, that it's good for working people, that it's good for families, that we don't make the same mistakes that Congress made with social media, where 30 years ago now, Congress basically outsourced social media to the biggest corporations in the world, and that has been, I would submit to you, nearly an unmitigated disaster, where we have had the biggest, most powerful corporations, not just in America, but on the globe and in the history of the globe, doing whatever they want with social media, running experiments basically every day on America's kids, inflicting mental health harms, the likes of which we've never seen, messing around in our elections in a way that is deeply, deeply corrosive to our way of life. We cannot make those mistakes again. So we are here, as Senator Blumenthal said, to try to find answers and to try to make sure that this technology is something that actually benefits the people of this country. I have no doubt, with all due respect to the corporatists who are in front of us, those heads of these corporations, I have no doubt it's going to benefit your companies. What I want to make sure is that it actually benefits the American people. And I think that's the task that we're engaged in. I look forward to this today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks again to the witnesses for being here. I want to particularly thank you, Mr. Smith. I know that there's a group of other of your colleagues, your counterparts in industry who are gathering, I think, tomorrow. And that is what it is. But I appreciate you being willing to be here in public and answer questions in front of the press is here, and this is open to anybody who wants to see it, and I think that's the way that this ought to be done. I appreciate you being willing to do that. You mentioned protecting kids. I just want to start with that, if I could. I want to ask you a little bit about what Microsoft has done and is doing. Kids use your Bing chatbot. Is that fair to say?
Yes, we have certain age controls, so we don't let a child of any age, but yes, in general, it is possible for children to register if they're of a certain age.
And the age is?
I'm trying to remember as I sit here. I'll get.
I think it's 13. Does that sound right?
Maybe something. I was going to say 12 or 13. I'll take 13.
Do you have some sort of age verification? I mean, how do we know what age? I mean, obviously the kid can put in whatever age he or she wants to. Is there some form of age verification for Bing?
We do have age verification systems that then involve typically getting permission from a parent, and we use this across our services, including for gaming. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly how it works, but I'd be happy to get you the details.
Great. My impression is that Bing Chat doesn't really have an enforceable age verification. I mean, there's no way really to know. But again, you correct me if that's wrong. Let me ask you this. What happens to all of the information that our hypothetical 13-year-old is putting into the tool as it's having this chat? You know, I mean, they could be chatting about anything and going back and forth on any number of subjects. What happens to that info that the kid puts in?
Well, the most important thing I would say first is that it all is done in a manner that protects the privacy of children.
And how is that?
Well, we follow the rules in COPPA, which, as you know, exists to protect child online privacy. And it forbids using it for tracking. It forbids its use for advertising or for other things. It seeks to put very tight controls around the use and the retention of that information. The second thing I would just add to that is, in addition to protecting privacy, we are hyper-focused on ensuring that, in most cases, people of any age, but especially children, are not able to use something like Bing Chat in ways that would cause harm to themselves or to others.
And how do you do that?
We basically have a safety architecture that we use across the board. Think about it like this. There's two things around a model. The first is called a classifier, so that if somebody asks, how can I commit suicide tonight? How can I blow up my school tomorrow? That hits a classifier that identifies a class of questions or prompts or issues. And then second, there's what we call meta prompts. And that we intervene so that the question is not answered. If someone asks how to commit suicide, we typically would provide a response that encourages someone to get mental health assistance and counseling and tells them how. If somebody wants to know how to build a bomb, it says, no, you cannot use this to do that. And that fundamental safety architecture is going to evolve, it's going to get better, but in a sense, it's at the heart, if you will, of both what we do and I think the best practices in the industry. And I think part of what this is all about, that we're talking about here, is how we take that architectural element and continue to strengthen it.
Very good. That's helpful. Let me ask you about the information, back to the kids' information for a second. Is it stored in the United States? Is it stored overseas?
If the child is in the United States, the data is stored in the United States. That's true not only for children, it's for adults as well.
And who has access to that data?
The child has access. If the parents may or may not have access. Typically, we give.
In what circumstances would the parents have access?
I would have to go get you the specifics on that. Our general principle is this, and this is something we've implemented in the United States, even though it's not legally required in the United States. It is legally required, as you may know, in Europe. People, we think, have a right to find out what information we have about them. They have the right to see it. They have the right to ask us to correct it if it's wrong. They have the right to ask us to delete it if that's what they want us to do.
And you do that. If they ask you to delete it, you delete it.
We better, yes. That's our promise, and we do a lot to comply with that.
Let me just ask about, and I have a lot more questions. I'm going to try to adhere to the time limit, Mr. Chairman. 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
We'll have a second round.
All right. That's great news for us, not such great news for the witnesses. Sorry. Yeah, right. Let me just, before I leave this subject, last thing, just about the kids' personal data and where it's stored. I'm asking you this, as I'm sure you can intuit, because we've seen other technology companies in the social media space who have major issues about where data is stored and major access issues. And I'm thinking of, it shouldn't be hard to guess, I'm thinking in particular of China, where we've seen other social media companies who say, oh, well, America's data is stored in America, but guess what? Lots of people in other countries can access that data. So is that true for you, Mr. Smith? Is a child's data that they've entered into the Bing chat that's stored in the United States, you just said, if they're an American citizen, can that be accessed in, let's say, China by a Microsoft China-based engineer?
I don't believe so. I'd love to go back and just confirm that, but I don't believe.
Would you be able to get
Sure.
that for me for the record? Thank
Sure.
you. Okay, I'll have lots more questions later. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. On behalf of the chairman, we're going to start a second round, and I guess I'll go first since I'm the only one sitting here. It's bad news for the witnesses.
Well, I came to hear you.
Oh, no, I'm sure.
I mean it.
Yeah. Let me just, Mr. Smith, let me come back to this. We were talking about kids and kids' privacy and safety. Thanks for the information you're going to get me. Let me give you an opportunity, though, to maybe make a little news today in the best possible way. 13, the age limit for Bing's chat, that's such a young age. I mean, listen, I've got 3 kids at home, 10, 8, 2 are my kids. I don't want my kids to be interacting with chatbots anytime soon at all, but 13 is so incredibly young. Would you commit today to raising that age? And would you commit to a verifiable age verification procedure such that parents can know, they can have some sense of confidence that their 12-year-old is not just saying to Bing, yeah, I'm 13, yeah, I'm 15, sure, go right on ahead. Now let's get into a back and forth with this robot, as Senator Kennedy said. Would you commit to those things on behalf of child safety today?
Look, as you can imagine, the teams that work at Microsoft let me go out and speak, but they probably have one principle they want me to remember. Don't go out and make news without talking to them first.
But you're the boss.
Yeah, let's just say wisdom is important, and most mistakes you make when you make them by yourself. I'm happy to go back and talk more about what the right age should be.
Don't you think 13 is awfully low, though?
It depends for what, actually.
To interact with a robot who could be telling you to do any number of things. Don't you think that's awfully young?
Not necessarily. Let me describe the scenario. When I was in Seoul, Korea, a couple of months ago, we met with the Deputy Prime Minister, who's also the Minister of Education. And they're trying to create, for 3 topics that are very objective, math, coding, and learning English, a digital textbook with an AI tutor. So that if you're doing math and you don't understand a concept, you can ask the AI tutor to help you solve the problem. And by the way, I think it's useful not only for the kids, I think it's useful for the parents. And I think it's good. Let's just say a 14-year-old. Let's say, what's the age of 8th grade algebra? Most parents, I found when my kids were in 8th grade algebra, I tried to help them with their homework. They didn't believe I ever made it through the class. I think we want kids in a controlled way with safeguards to use something that way.
But we're not talking here about tutors. I'm talking about your AI chat, being chat. I mean, famously earlier this year, your chatbot, you had a technology writer for the New York Times who wrote about this. I'm looking at the article right now. Your chatbot was urging this person to break up his marriage.
I'm not
Do we
sure.
want 13-year-olds to be having those conversations?
No, of course not.
Okay.
Which is
well, will
why
you commit to raising the age?
I actually don't want Bing Chat to break up anybody's
I
marriage.
don't either.
So, but
There
that,
may be some exceptions.
yeah, but we're not going to make the decision on the exception. No, but it goes to, we have multiple tools. Age is a very red line.
It is a very red line.
And
That's
there-
why I like it.
And my point is, there is a safety architecture that we can apply to bring them.
But your safety architecture didn't stop an adult, didn't stop the chatbot from having this discussion with an adult in which it said, you don't really love your wife, your wife isn't good for you, she doesn't really love you. Now, can you imagine, this is an adult, can you imagine the kind of things that your chatbot would say to a 13-year-old? I mean,
Well,
I'm serious about this. Do you
no.
really think this is a good idea?
Yeah, but look, wait a second. Let's put that in context. At a point where the technology had been rolled out for only 20,000 people, a journalist for the New York Times spent 2 hours on the evening of Valentine's Day ignoring his wife and interacting with a computer, trying to break the system, which he managed to do. We didn't envision that use, and by the next day we had fixed it. That's the key thing.
Are you telling me that you've envisioned all the questions that 13-year-olds might ask, and that I, as a parent, should be absolutely fine with that? Are you telling me that I should trust you in the same way that the New York Times writer did?
What I am saying is, I think as we go forward, we have an increasing capability to learn from the experience of real people and put the right
that's what
guardrails
worries
in
me. That's exactly what worries me. Is what you're saying is we have to have some failures. I don't want 13-year-olds to be your guinea pig. I don't want 14-year-olds to be your guinea pig. I don't want any kids to be your guinea pig. I don't want you to learn from their failures. You want to learn from the failures of your scientists? Go right ahead. Let's not learn from the failures of America's kids. This is what happened with social media. We had social media who made billions of dollars giving us a mental health crisis in this country. They got rich. The kids got depressed, committed suicide. Why would we want to run that experiment again with AI? Why not raise the age? You can do it.
We shouldn't want, first of all, we shouldn't want anybody to be a guinea pig. I think that regardless of age or anything else.
Good. Well, let's rule kids out right here, right today, right now.
No, but let's also recognize that technology does require real users. What's different about this technology, and which is so fundamentally different in my view from the social media experience, is that we not only have the capacity, but we have the will, and we are applying that will to fix things in hours and days.
Well, yeah, to fix things after the fact. I mean, I'm sorry, it just sounds to me like you're boiling it down. You're saying, trust us. We're gonna do well with this. I'm just asking you why we should trust you with our children.
I'm not asking for trust, although I hope we will work every day to earn it. That's why you have a licensing obligation.
There isn't a licensing obligation.
That's
right
why
now.
in your framework, in my view,
Well, sure, but I'm asking you, as the president of this company, to make a commitment now for child safety and protection to say, you know what, Microsoft is going to, you can tell every parent in America now, Microsoft is going to protect your kids. We will never use your kids as a science experiment, ever, never. And therefore, we're not going to target your kids, and we're not going to allow your kids to be used by our chatbots as a source of information if they're younger than 18.
but I think you're talking about, with all due respect, there's two things that you're talking about, and I think we're.
I'm just talking about protecting
together.
kids. It's very simple.
Yeah, no, but we don't want to use kids as a source of information and monetize it, et cetera. But I'm equally of the view, I don't want to cut off an 8th grader today with the right or ability to use this tool that will help them learn algebra or math in a way that they couldn't a year ago.
Yeah, well, with all due respect, it wasn't algebra or math that your chatbot was recommending or talking about when it was trying to break up some reporter's marriage.
Of course not, but now we're mixing things and
No, we're
using
not.
one.
We're talking about your chatbot. We're talking about Bing Chat.
Of course, we're talking about Bing Chat. And I'm talking about the protection of children and how we make technology better. And yes, there was that episode back in February on Valentine's Day. 6 months later, if that journalist tries to do the same thing again, it will not happen.
You want me to be done, Senator Klobuchar?
I just don't want to miss my vote.
There's other witnesses.
I don't want to miss my vote.
Senator Klobuchar.
Oh, well, you are very kind. Thank
Mr.
you.
Smith, let me just come back to something you said, thinking about now workers. You talked about Wendy's, I think it was, automating the drive-through, and talking about, this was a good thing. I just want to press on that a little bit. Is it a good thing that workers lose their jobs to AI, whether it's at Wendy's or whether it's at Walmart or whether it's at the local hardware store? I mean, is it, you pointed out that your comment was that there's really no creativity involved in taking orders through the drive-through. But that is a job, oftentimes a first job for younger Americans. But hey, in this economy, where the wages of blue-collar workers have been flat for 30, 40 years and running, what worries me is that oftentimes what we hear from the tech sector, to be honest with you, is that jobs that don't have creativity as tech defines it don't have value. I'm frankly scared to death that AI will replace lots of jobs that tech types think aren't creative and will leave even more blue-collar workers without any place to turn. So my question to you is can we expect more of this, and is it really progress for folks to lose those kind of jobs that, I suspect that's not the best paying job in the world, but at least it's a job. And do we really want to see more of these jobs lost?
Well, to be clear, first, I didn't say whether it was a good or bad thing. I was asked to predict what jobs would be impacted and identified that job as one that likely would be. So, but let's, I think, step back because I think your question is critically important. Let's first reflect on the fact that we've had about 200 years of automation that have impacted jobs, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. In Wisconsin, where I grew up, or in Missouri, where my father grew up, if you go back 150 years, it took 20 people to harvest an acre of wheat or corn, and now it takes one. So 19 people don't work on that acre anymore. And that's been an ongoing part of technology. The real question is this: how do we ensure that technology advances so that we help people get better jobs, get the skills they need for those jobs, and hopefully do it in a way that broadens economic opportunity rather than narrows it? I think the thing we should be the most concerned by is that since the 1990s, and I think this is the point you're making, if you look at the flow of digital technology, fundamentally we've lived in a world that has widened the economic divide. Those people with a college or graduate education have seen their incomes rise in real terms. Those people with, say, a high school diploma or less have seen their income level actually drop compared to where it was in the 1990s. So what do we do now? Well, I'll at least say what I think our goal should be. Can we use this technology to help advance productivity for a much broader range of people, including people who didn't have the good fortune to go to, say, where you or I went to college or law school? And can we do it in a way that not only makes them more productive, but actually reap some of the dividends of that productivity for themselves in a growing income level? I think it's that conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I hope that's what AI can do. You talked about the farm used to take 20 people to do what one person could do. It used to take thousands of people to produce textiles or furniture or other things in this company, where now it's zero. So we can tell the tale in different ways. I'm not sure that seeing working class jobs go overseas or be replaced entirely is a success story. In fact, I'd argue it's not at all. It's not a success story. And I'd argue more broadly that our economic policy the last 30 years has been downright disastrous for working people. And tech companies and financial institutions and certainly banks and Wall Street, they have reaped huge profits. But blue-collar workers can barely find a good-paying job. I don't want AI to be the latest accelerant of that trend. And so I don't really want every service station in America to be manned by some computer such that nobody can get a job anymore, get their foot in the door, start their climb up the ladder. That worries me. Let me ask you about something else here in my expiring time. You mentioned national security, critically important. Of course, there's no national security threat that is more significant for the United States than China. Let me just ask you, is Microsoft too entwined with China? You have the Microsoft Research Asia that was set up way in Beijing back in the late 1990s. You've got centers now in Shanghai and elsewhere. You've got all kinds of cooperation with Chinese state-owned businesses. I'm looking at an article here from Protocol magazine where one of their contributors said that Microsoft had been the alma mater of Chinese big tech. Are you concerned about your degree of entwinement with the Chinese government? Do you need to be decoupling in order to make sure that our national security interests aren't fatally compromised?
I think it's something that we need to be and are focused on. To some degree, in some technology fields, Microsoft is the alma mater of the technology leaders in every country in the world because of the role that we've played over the last 40 years. But when it comes to China today, we are and need to have very specific controls on who uses our technology and for what and how. That's why we don't, for example, do work on quantum computing, or we don't provide facial recognition services, or focus on synthetic media, or a whole variety of things, while at the same time, when Starbucks has stores in China, I think it's good that they can run their services in our data center rather than a Chinese company's data center.
Well, just on facial recognition, I mean, back in 2016, your company released this database, MS Celeb, 10 million faces without the consent of the folks who were in the database. You eventually took it down, although it took 3 years. China used that database to train much of its facial recognition software and technology. I mean, isn't that a problem? You said that Microsoft might be the alma mater of many companies' AI, but China's unique, no? I mean, China is running concentration camps using digital technology like we've never seen before. I mean, isn't that a problem for your company to be in any way involved in that?
We don't want to be involved in that in any way, and I don't believe we are. I think that...
Are you going to close your centers in China, your Microsoft Research Asia in Beijing, or your center in Shanghai?
I don't think that will accomplish what you're asking us.
You're running thousands of people through your centers out into the Chinese government and Chinese state-owned enterprises. Isn't that a problem?
First of all, there's a big premise, and I don't embrace the premise that that is in fact what we're doing.
Which part is wrong?
The notion that we're running thousands of people through and then they're going into the Chinese government.
Is that not right? I thought you had 10,000 employees in China whom you've recruited from Chinese state-owned agencies, Chinese state-owned businesses. They come work for you, and then they go back to these state-owned entities.
We have employees in China. In fact, we have that number. To my knowledge, that is not where they're coming from. That is not where they're going. We are not running that kind of revolving door. And it's all about what we do and who we do it with that I think is of paramount importance. And that's what we're focused on.
You'd condemn what the Chinese government's doing to the Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province and all of that.
We do everything we can to ensure that our technology is not used in any way for that kind of activity in China and around the world, by the way.
But you condemn it, to be clear.
Yes.
What are your safeguards that you have in place such that your technology is not further enabling the Chinese government, given the number of people you employ there and the technology you develop there?
Well, you take something like facial recognition, which is at the heart of your question. We have very tight controls that limit the use of facial recognition in China, including controls that in effect make it very difficult, if not impossible, to use it for any kind of real-time surveillance at all. And by the way, the thing we should remember, the US is a leader in many AI fields. China is the leader in facial recognition technology and the AI for it. And
Well, in part because of the information that you helped them acquire, no?
no, it's because they have the world's most data.
Well, yeah, but you gave them 10
No,
million.
I don't think that's.
You don't think
fair
that had anything to do with it?
characterization. I don't think, when you have a country of 1.4 billion people and you decide to have facial recognition used in so many places, it gives that country a mass of data.
But are you saying that the database that Microsoft released in 2016, MS Celeb, you're saying that wasn't used by the Chinese government to train their facial recognition?
I am not familiar with that, and I add it to the list. I'd be happy to provide you with information, but my goodness, the advance in that facial recognition technology, if you go to another country where they're using facial recognition technology, it's highly unlikely it's American technology. It's highly likely that it's Chinese technology because they are such leaders in that field, which I think is fine. I mean, if you want to pick a field where the United States doesn't want to be a technology leader, I'd put facial recognition technology on that list. But let's recognize it's homegrown.
How much money has Microsoft invested in AI development in China?
I don't know, but I will tell you this. The revenue that we make in China, which accounts for what, about 1 out of every 6 humans on this planet, if not, it's 1.5% of our global revenue. It's not the market for us that it is for other industries or even some other tech companies.
Sounds then like you can afford to decouple.
But is that the right thing to do?
Yes. And again, a regime that is fundamentally evil, that is inflicting the kind of atrocities on its own citizens that you just alluded to, that is doing to the Uyghurs what it's doing, that is running modern-day concentration camps, yeah, I think it is.
But there's 2 questions that I think at least are worthy of thought. Number 1, do you want General Motors to sell or manufacture cars? Let's just say sell cars in China. Do you want to create jobs for people in Michigan or Missouri so that those cars can be sold in China? If the answer to that is yes, then think about the second question. How do you want General Motors in China to run its operations, and where would you like it to store its data? Would you like it to be in a secure data center run by an American company, or would you like it to be run by a Chinese company? Which will better protect General Motors' trade secrets? I'll argue we should be there so that we can protect the data of American companies, European companies, Japanese companies. Even if you disagree on everything else, that, I believe, serves this country well.
Yeah, but I think you're doing a lot more than just protecting data in China. You have major research centers, thousands, tens of thousands of employees. And to your question, do I want General Motors to be building cars in China? No, I don't. I want them to be making cars here in the United States with American workers. And do I want American companies to be aiding in any way the Chinese government in their oppressive tactics? I don't. Senator Ossoff, would you like me to yield to you now? Are you ready?
I am going to, I have been very hesitant to interrupt.
Very patient.
The discussion, the conversation here has been very